après-midi, tout
Andiamo, forza! Puedo matarte a disparo!
Si è volatilizzato. Me ne vado.
Ecce qui togli il peccato mondo.
عارف راح كل جبانها
ليس مهما كما ظننت ساسا.
صدقني المخرج
Masih hasar, masih janas. Palu mansepa, winja duashala. Tusama, winja urus waidash. Guifa haplaha, winjai damsha. Mabaya Guama Udan Krauhadan Yaudan Isila Haskapuris Ninjan Hirapaspara Nu Laukas Guama Mash Apashkanti, Winja Brashtar, Balshayua, Guashar, Urus, Sanshar, Mas, Sanshar.
Welcome! Today, we're going to be covering the Paleolithic era to the Agricultural Revolution, which covers the Paleolithic era, which is the Old Stone Age, going to the Neolithic era, which is the New Stone Age, which is basically when farming was developed. And then finally, because this is a prehistorical era, prehistory meaning before a written language, there's also one last section on archaeology. That's how we know what we know about this time period. Now, in the meantime, hopefully you've been enjoying the video clips from Far Cry Primal. So I love video games, as you're going to see throughout this video series, so I try to use them whenever I can. Far Cry Primal really touches on a lot of the things that you see during the Paleolithic era, and we'll talk about them individually, and I'll be referring back to the video, so feel free to watch or rewind if you need to see some of the things that are discussed. One thing I want to point out is, in the beginning, you can hear a guy talking in an unknown language, and it has English caption on the screen telling you what he's saying. That's total speculation. We know that they had to have had some type of oral language, but it wasn't like they were speaking English or French or something else along those lines. So what's depicted is our best guess, and I think they did a really good job of it, so hopefully you enjoyed it. Now in the background you're looking at what early hunting would have possibly been like, and again, we don't know because we can't look up a YouTube video and see how a caveman recorded their hunt. So the big thing with this unit is that, once again, it's prehistory, meaning there isn't anyone writing anything down, so we can't read first-hand accounts of what it was like during the Paleolithic or Neolithic era. So we have to figure it out from artifacts and fossils and other things that archaeologists discover, which makes it interesting. Okay, so the first thing we really need to understand, first and foremost, is BC and AD versus BCE and CE. So BC means before Christ. I'm sure most of you knew that. Most people think AD means after death, but it does not. It means Anno Domini. That is, in the year of the Lord. So as you can see from the graphic, a Christian monk set up the BC AD system in order to establish dates for past events according to a Christian timeline. Now, historians and other scholars have changed that. They don't use BC and AD. They've changed that to BCE, which is before the Common Era, and CE, which is the Common Era, because it's not religion specific. So if you look at the current graphic now, it says timeline example. Now the red line in the middle, technically that does represent the birth of Jesus. Now there is no year 0, but people argue he was probably born in 4 BC. However, the point being, this is kind of like math. You've had the negative and positive numbers. It's the same principle. So anything to the right of that red line going up to the present day. So where it says present day, obviously that would be this year. But as you go backwards, you get to Columbus arrives in North America, 476 CE, 100 CE, until it counts down to 0, and then it starts going the opposite direction. So the numbers are getting bigger and bigger and bigger until you get to the first humans, which was somewhere around 100,000 to 400,000 BCE. The easiest way to remember it is just remember B is before the Common Era, and we live in the Common Era. That makes it much simpler. Okay, so we're going to talk about the characteristics of the Paleolithic era. The Paleolithic era is the Old Stone Age, again, as opposed to the Neolithic era, which is the New Stone Age. So in the Old Stone Age, Paleolithic, people are nomadic, which means they moved around. They had to hunt. They had to gather. They migrated in search of food, water, and shelter. And as you can see in the gameplay, they're hunting. So as the animals migrated, the humans had to follow them. If they gathered all the nuts and berries within the bushes, they didn't know how to plant them. They had not learned about agriculture yet, so they had to move in search of new naturally growing plants. They invented the first tools, including simple weapons. As you can see in the video, spears. This is simple because it's really just taking a piece of rock and tying it to a stick. Eventually, they'll have to have more complicated weapons that they'll be inventing, which we'll talk about later. When we're talking about tools, it's anything that can assist them. We're lucky today. We have hammers if we need to, use for certain things, or shovels or ladders and things like this. So they probably started off hunting with their bare hands, and then over time figured out that it was easier if they could use sticks, and then using sticks with stones attached to them, and then what's called a stone axe is where you put a heavier rock onto a stick. Things like that. So today, that's one of the things that separates humans, although there are some animals that we've discovered use simple tools. For example, people have discovered that dolphins can pick up rocks with their mouth and smash open clamshells. Kind of interesting if you think about it. So fire is actually really important, and it's often overlooked. It's thought of as advanced. So you would think the first humans probably encountered fire by accident. Maybe lightning strikes a tree, but eventually they learned to control it and to make it themselves. It's very important not only for cooking their food, but also for protection, because many wild animals would be afraid of fire. So, as you can see from the video clip, they're not hunting alone, they're in a group. Most likely this is a clan. This would be like your extended family, your uncles, your aunts, your cousins, mother, father, grandparents, etc. You would stay together because you trust them. Obviously, one of the problems is you can't always trust people. So as people get in contact with each other, that leads to warfare. So your clan or your extended family is the social organization of early people. They also developed oral language, most likely from hunting, in order to organize their hunts, to express where people should go, what should happen, and eventually over time those develop into languages. Again, as I explained early in this video, that's what's depicted. As you can see now, there's English captions. Now we don't know if that's true or not, what it means or how they did it, but this is just the speculation from the creators of the video game. Again, interesting, but we do think it makes sense that they had to have some type of oral communication. Most people think oral communication is complicated, but it really isn't. Think about it like this. An infant, a newborn baby, they orally communicate. When they wet themselves, they cry. Let you know that they need their diaper changed. That's oral communication in a very simplified manner. And finally, that leaves us with cave art. They created cave art, and it's a primary means for us to understand what their lives were like. As you can see here, they sprayed some type of paint that they created themselves, probably from a rolled up leaf, and they put their hand against the wall and blew the paint over it, leaving their impression of their hand. Other examples, there's animals and other things that they hunted, and we know that they hunted and did these things because they have depictions of them. So it's pretty interesting. But that's how we learn about the Paleolithic era in particular, because there is no written language. So in the next video, we're going to talk about the Neolithic era as well as archaeology. So this one I spent a little bit more time on because, in my opinion, it's interesting, but some people have a little bit of trouble understanding what the Paleolithic era is all about, because it's really getting into this unknown time period where we don't have any written language telling us specifically what they did or how they lived their lives. We have to discover that through archaeology.